Your parents bought a house on one salary, you can't afford rent on two. Your parents paid for college with summer jobs, you'll be paying student loans until you're 40. Your dad supported a family of 4 on a factory wage, you're childless and broke. This isn't your failure, the game changed. And nobody told you the rules are different now. Don't skip this video. What I'm about to show you will make everything about your financial struggle make sense for the first time. Every frustration you felt, every time you thought you were failing, every moment you wondered why working hard isn't enough anymore, it's all about to click. This video explains exactly why you're working harder than your parents ever did and somehow ending up poorer. Why your degree costs 10 times more and pays half as much. Why your rent takes 60% of your income when theirs took 20. Why you're living a downgraded version of the life they had despite being more educated, more productive, and working more hours. By the end, you'll understand the structural forces that broke the middle class, why you inherited a rigged economy, and what you can actually do about it. This isn't about blame, it's about clarity. And clarity is the first step to changing your outcome. Let's start with the comparison that breaks your brain. Your dad, 1975, high school diploma, gets hired at a manufacturing plant, 40 hours a week, earns $35,000 annually adjusted for inflation, buys a house for $80,000, 3 times his annual salary, supports your mom who stays home, raises 3 kids, takes 2-week vacations, retires at 62 with a pension, never stressed about money. You today, college degree, student loans. Work 50 hours a week, earn $40,000 annually. Houses in your area cost $400,000, 10 times your annual salary. You can't afford to buy, you rent. 60% of your income goes to rent. You have no kids because you can't afford them. You take no vacations because you have no money. You'll work until 70 if you're lucky. Constantly stressed about money. Same country, same economic system supposedly, completely different outcomes. What happened? Here's what nobody explained to you. The economic contract your parents lived under doesn't exist anymore. That contract said work hard, play by the rules, and you'll have security, a house, a family, retirement. That contract is dead. It died slowly over 40 years while everyone pretended it still worked. Your parents benefited from it. You inherited the corpse, and you're being told to make it work through sheer effort. But you can't effort your way out of structural collapse. The system your parents navigated is not the system you're navigating. The rules changed, the outcomes changed, and you're stuck playing a game with your parents' strategy in a completely different environment. Here's the first thing that changed. Real wages. Your parents' generation saw wages rise consistently with productivity. When workers produced more value per hour, they captured more of that value in wages. The economy grew, workers shared in that growth. This created the expanding middle class, but starting in the 1970s, something broke. Productivity kept rising, wages didn't. Workers kept producing more value per hour, but that value stopped flowing to workers. It flowed to shareholders, executives, and capital owners instead. Over the past 50 years, productivity in the United States has increased 77%. Real wages for average workers have increased 12%. That gap is stolen value. You're producing more, you're capturing less. Your dad produced less per hour but captured more of the value he created. You produce more per hour but capture a fraction. This isn't about your effort. This is about how the economic pie gets divided, and your slice got smaller while you were told to work harder. Let me show you what this looks like in actual dollars. 1975, median household income $54,000 adjusted for today's money. Median home price $75,000 in today's money. House costs 1.4 times annual income. College tuition at a public university $5,000 per year in today's money. Healthcare expenses $2,000 annually in today's money. Total cost of middle-class life affordable on single income today. Median household income $67,000, up $13,000 from 1975. Sounds good until you look at costs. Median home price $420,000. House costs 6.3 times annual income. College tuition at public university $28,000 per year, up 560%. Healthcare expenses $12,000 annually, up 600%. Housing, education, and healthcare, the 3 pillars of middle-class life, have all increased faster than wages by factors of 3 to 6. Your income went up $13,000 over 50 years. Your costs went up $200,000. You're not failing. You're losing a math problem you can't solve through effort. Here's the second thing that changed. Housing. Your parents bought a house for 3 times their annual salary. You're looking at houses that cost 10 times your annual salary. Why? Because housing stopped being shelter and became an investment asset. In the 1980s and 90s, policy changes encouraged treating homes as wealth-building tools. Mortgage interest deductions incentivized bigger mortgages. Zoning laws restricted supply in desirable areas. Foreign investment flooded housing markets. Institutional investors started buying single-family homes, housing prices decoupled from local wages and tied to global capital instead. Your parents bought a house from a family selling their house. You're trying to house competing against investment firms with billion-dollar funds. You were never going to win that bidding war, and now you're locked out of the primary wealth-building tool your parents used. They bought houses that appreciated while they slept. You pay rent that builds someone else's equity while you sleep. Over 30 years, that difference is $500,000 in wealth. You didn't get lazier than your parents. You got priced out of the wealth-building mechanism that worked for them. The third thing that changed, education costs. Your parents paid for college with summer jobs. Seriously, tuition at a state university in 1970 was $600 per year. Minimum wage was $1.60 per hour. A student working 20 hours per week for 12 weeks summer earned $384. Tuition was $600. Work 20 hours a week during school for 30 weeks, another $960. Total earnings $1,300. $44, tuition $600, room and board $1,000, total cost $1,600, close enough. A student could graduate debt-free working part-time. Today, tuition at a state university is $10,000 per year. Minimum wage is $7.25 per hour. A student working 20 hours per week for 12 weeks summer earns $1,740. Tuition is $10,000. You can't work your way through college anymore. It's mathematically impossible, so you take loans. $40,000 of loans for a bachelor's degree. You graduate at 22. You're already $40,000 in the hole before you earn your first real paycheck. Your parents graduated at zero, started building wealth immediately. You're starting from negative $40,000. That's not your failure, that's structural change. Here's the fourth thing that changed, job security and benefits. Your dad's generation had pensions, employer-funded retirement, work 30 years, retire with 60% of your salary for life. Healthcare was employer-covered, unions negotiated for workers and kept wages tied to profits, jobs were stable, you could work at one company for decades, all of that is gone. Pensions were replaced with 401k plans that shift all retirement risk to you. Healthcare is partially covered if you're lucky, and even then you're paying thousands in premiums and deductibles. Unions collapsed. Private sector union membership dropped from 35% in the 1950s to 6% today. Jobs are precarious. Companies lay off thousands to boost stock prices. You're expected to change jobs every 3 years to get real raises. Gig economy work is normalized. No benefits, no security, just constant hustle. Your parents had institutional support. You have a motivational quote on LinkedIn. The fifth thing that changed, the cost of being alive. Your parents' generation didn't have mandatory expenses that you do. No internet bill, no cell phone bill, no subscription services, no software licenses. Everything that was once owned is now rented. You don't buy Microsoft Office. You rent it monthly forever. You don't buy movies. You subscribe to 5 streaming services at $15 each. You don't own music. You pay Spotify. Every aspect of life has been financialized into recurring revenue for corporations. Your parents paid for a phone once and used it for 20 years. You're paying $80 monthly forever. Over 30 years, that's $28,000 on phone service. Your parents bought an encyclopedia set for $200. You pay for internet forever, $50 monthly, 30 years, $18,000. These weren't expenses in your parents' budget. They're mandatory in yours. Add them up. Internet, phone, streaming, software, subscriptions, $300 monthly minimum. That's $3,600 annually. Over 30 years, $108,000. Your parents didn't have this cost. You do. That's another chunk of wealth you'll never build because it's being extracted monthly. Let's look at the compound effect of all these changes. Your parents at age 25, high school diploma, factory job, $35,000 annual income, buy house for $80,000, 20% down, $16,000, mortgage $1,600 monthly including taxes and insurance, 46% of gross income, manageable, no student debt, pension building automatically, health insurance fully covered, by age 55 house is paid off, pension worth $400,000. Home worth $300,000, total net worth $700,000, comfortable retirement, you at age 25, college degree, student loans $40,000, office job $40,000 annual income, can't buy house, rent $1,800 monthly, 54% of gross income, student loan payment. $400 monthly, no pension, contributing 6% to 401k health insurance $300 monthly at 55 still renting, 401k worth $150,000 if you never touched it, which you probably did during emergencies. No home equity, total net worth $150,000, working until 70 mandatory, same effort, same hours, worse outcome by $500,000 not because you failed, because the structure changed. Here's the part that makes you angry. You were told this was your fault. Avocado toast, Starbucks, entitlement, lazy millennials, none of that is real, it's gaslighting, designed to make you blame yourself for structural failures you didn't create. Let's destroy these myths. Avocado toast, $10 once a week, 52 weeks, $520 annually. Over 30 years, $15,600. Your parents' house appreciated $220,000 while they lived in it. Avocado toast didn't steal your house, housing policy did. Starbucks, $5 daily, 365 days, $1,825 annually. 30 years, $54,750. Your dad's pension was worth $400,000. Starbucks didn't steal your retirement. The shift from pensions to 401ks did. You're not poor because you buy coffee. You're poor because wages stagnated while costs exploded. And blaming yourself for systemic failure prevents you from seeing what actually happened. Here's what actually happened. Starting in the 1970s, economic policy shifted from supporting labor to supporting capital. Tax rates on top earners dropped from 70% to 37%. Corporate taxes dropped from 50% to 21%. That money didn't disappear. It flowed from government services and worker wages to corporate profits and executive compensation. CEO pay-in. 1965 was 20 times average worker pay. Today it's 350 times. That money came from somewhere. It came from you. Your wage stagnation funded their wealth explosion. Unions were systematically dismantled. Right-to-work laws weakened collective bargaining. Employers could threaten to move jobs overseas if workers demanded better wages. Manufacturing jobs left. Service jobs replaced them at half the pay. Entire industries shifted from permanent employees to contract workers. No benefits, no security, just a race to the bottom on labor costs. And through all of this you were told the economy is great, GDP is growing, stock market is up. But GDP growth doesn't help you if you don't own stocks. Stock market gains don't help you if your retirement is unfunded. The economy is great for people who own capital. It's terrible for people who only have labor to sell. And you only have labor. So what do you actually do about this? First, stop blaming yourself. You're not failing, you inherited a broken system and you're doing your best within it. The self-blame has to stop because it prevents clear thinking. Once you accept that the structure is the problem, you can start making strategic decisions instead of emotional ones. Second, optimize for wealth building within the constraints you have. You can't buy a house at 25 like your parents did. Fine, that path is closed. What paths are open? Maxing tax-advantaged accounts even if amounts are small. 401k, HSA, Roth IRA. These are the only tax shelters you have access to. Use them. Building skills that can't be outsourced or automated. Your dad could do the same job for 30 years. You can't. You need skills that remain valuable as industries change. This means continuous learning. Always be building the next relevant skill. Third, reduce or eliminate the wealth extraction mechanisms. Subscriptions you don't use, cancel them. Debt with interest above 7%. Pay it off. Aggressively, rent that's above 30% of income. Move or get roommates even though that's humiliating. These are survival moves in a hostile environment. Fourth, understand this is a long game. Your parents could build middle-class wealth in 15 years. You're looking at 30 years minimum. That's not because you're doing anything wrong. It's because the math changed. Accepting the timeline prevents giving up at year 10 when you're not where you think you should be. You're exactly where the structure predicts you'll be. Stay on the path. Fifth, build multiple income streams if possible. Your parents had job security. You don't. One income source is fragile. Two is more resilient. This doesn't mean quit your job and start 10 side hustles. It means if you can build one additional small income source, do it. Freelancing, consulting, small online income, anything that diversifies your dependence on one employer. Sixth, vote and advocate for structural change. This problem is political. It was created by policy. It can be fixed by policy. Support politicians who want to address housing costs, education costs, healthcare costs, and wage stagnation. This isn't about left or right. It's about recognizing the middle class was created by policy in the 1930s through 1960s and destroyed by policy from 1980s onward. Policy created this. Policy can fix it. But while you're waiting for policy to maybe fix things in 20 years, you still have to survive now. So here's the psychological shift that matters. Your parents could follow a simple playbook and succeed. Go to school, get job, buy house, retire. That playbook is broken. You need a different one. And that playbook is more complex, more uncertain, and less guaranteed. But it's the only one that works in this environment. First, accept that security is dead. Your parents had security. You have options. Security meant one employer, one career, one path. That's gone. Options means multiple skills, multiple income possibilities, and the ability to pivot when industries change. This is harder, but it's reality. Stop mourning the security your parents had and start building the options you need. Second, accept that you're starting from behind. Your parents started at zero. You're starting at negative $40,000 if you have student loans. Negative $100,000 if you also have consumer debt. This isn't fair, but it's real. And accepting it allows you to plan accordingly instead of being shocked that you're not building wealth as fast as you think you should. Third, reject comparison to your parents' timeline. They bought a house at 26. You won't. They had kids at 28. You probably won't until 35 if ever. They retired at 62. You're working until 70. These aren't personal failures. These are structural realities. Comparing yourself to their timeline is comparing two different games. You're not losing their game. You're playing a different, harder game, and you need to judge success by the rules of the game you're actually in, not the game they played. Fourth, understand that the majority of people your age are in the same situation. You're not uniquely failing. 63% of Americans can't afford a $500 emergency expense. 44 million have student loan debt. Homeownership rates for people under 35 are at 40-year lows. You're not alone in this struggle. The entire generation is facing the same structural barriers. This should be enraging, and that rage should be directed at systems, not at yourself. Here's the timeline that shows what's realistic now versus what your parents did. Your parents at 25, married, house, one kid, financially stable. You at 25, single or partnered but not married because weddings cost $30,000. Renting, no kids because daycare costs $15,000 annually, financially stressed. Your parents. At 35, second kid, house half paid off, savings building, career stable. You at 35, maybe married, maybe first kid if you're financially aggressive. Still renting or just bought house with huge mortgage, savings minimal, career precarious. Changed jobs 4 times. Your parents at 45, house nearly paid off. Kids in college they're paying for with current income, retirement funded by pension. You at 45, mortgage half paid if you bought at 35. Kids in college you can't afford. Taking parent loans, retirement funded by 401k, that's insufficient. Working until 70 is assumed. Your parents at 65, retired, pension paid off, house. Grandkids comfortable. You at 65, still working, can't afford to retire, house paid off maybe. No grandkids yet because your kids can't afford kids, stressed. This is the structural difference. 2 generations, same country, completely different capabilities. So here's what we've covered. Your parents lived under an economic contract that rewarded work with security. That contract is dead. Real wages stopped growing with productivity in the 1970s. You're producing more value and capturing less of it. Housing costs increased 6 times faster than wages. You're priced out of the primary wealth-building tool your parents used. Education costs increased 500% while wages grew 12%. You're starting from negative 40,000 while they started from zero. Pensions were replaced with 401ks, shifting all retirement risk to you. Benefits eroded, job security collapsed, and everything became a subscription extracting wealth monthly. The gap between your outcomes and your parents' outcomes is $500,000 over a lifetime, not because you're less capable, because the structure changed. And you've been blamed for structural failures you didn't create through myths about avocado toast and entitlement. The reality is that economic policy shifted to benefit capital over labor. Your wage stagnation funded their wealth explosion, and now you're navigating a hostile environment with a broken playbook. This means your feelings of frustration are valid. You're not imagining it. It is harder. You are working more for less. The game is rigged, but understanding that the game is rigged gives you power, because now you're not blaming yourself. You're seeing clearly, and clear sight allows strategy. You can't fix the structure alone, but you can optimize within it, maximize tax-advantaged accounts, build multiple income streams, reduce wealth extraction, accept the longer timeline. Reject your parents' timeline as your measuring stick. And most importantly, direct your anger where it belongs, at systems, at policy, at the structural forces that broke the middle class, not at yourself. You're not failing. You're swimming against a current your parents never faced. And the fact that you're still swimming means you're stronger than they ever had to be. If you're tired of being gaslit about why you're struggling, subscribe to Wealth Explained 360. We explain the systems, not the myths.